Hello, everybody.
Hey, hello.
Howdy, howdy.
Hey there, I'm just finishing dinner.
Nice you can stay awake this late, Juan.
Yeah,
Sorry to make you do it.
it's been a long day today,
Yes, yes.
but this is totally worth it.
We hope. We'll see.
So welcome everyone to California Smalltalkers. We'll start at about 10 past. Wait for some more people to come in. What's new?
Try something here. So, Juan, Argentina does some Zoom-alike type of thing once in a while. Argentinian small talkers, you going to do anything like that in the near future? Or?
You mean the Argentinian the Argentinian conference?
Yeah.
Well, it was suspended for COVID and hasn't been resumed yet. So I hope that maybe this year or next year, I don't know, we will have again a Smalltalks conference on here. I still don't know. International travel is still difficult for many people.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of more like Zoom.
Well,
Zoom,
yeah.
Well, actually,
didn't happen.
The videos for the Zoom talks for the Argentinian group have been posted on Vimeo. So Juan gave a talk there, right, Juan?
Yeah, but it was not like the conference, right? It was
No, he's asking about the monthly meeting, right?
No, it was not a monthly meeting, but impromptu, random times when I don't know. Yeah, there has been a couple of presentations on specific topics, but not in the form of a conference. Besides, the best part of the conference, for me at least, was in the hallways and when the day ended and everybody went for drinks or food together, and that could last until very late in the night, and it was great. That's what I miss the most, actually. I mean, during this pandemic, we have had a lot of great virtual events like this one, for example, California Smalltalkers, also the UK Smalltalk user groups, and those are great. But I miss going out for drinks or food with people and random talk until very late. That's so much fun for me.
Yeah, I just looked it up. I got confused. The Vimeo videos are for the UK Smalltalkers.
Oh yes, they do a monthly meeting. Yes, the Argentina group did 2 or 3 meetings without a well-established schedule, and I guess I talked at some of them. I'm not actually sure. We have had lots of these virtual events in this last years, and they are fun too, of course. There are many people, for example, I most likely will not meet otherwise, right? You don't travel much.
I don't travel much. I haven't. I've hardly been off my island for the last year and a half.
So
just to the mainland a little bit, a little circuit to go to the food co-op and get some medical appointments and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I posted the link that on the chat that has the meetings for the Buenos Aires Small Talk group. They seem to be the last ones were from 2021.
Yeah.
I remember it's 2021. That wasn't that far back.
Yeah, the only one that I participated in was the quiz sprint, right? And the other ones I was just an attendee. Yeah. I would think that happened, at least to me, in the pandemic, was that at the beginning we were forced to spend so much time at home. We were not allowed to go anywhere, if you remember, and that I finally found enough time to build the vector graphics VM plugin engine for the quiz, and let's see, and that made vector graphics useful in practice. Okay, it made it useful for real. Before it was just a prototype, and now it's actually working, released software, right?
It's very nice.
And the pandemic helped me do that. Amazingly.
So, Craig, rather than doing this thing and then waiting 10 minutes, why don't you just clip the 10 minutes and we start when we start? Just as a meeting thing. When my training as an engineer is you look around the table, you know, when somebody's late for a meeting and you figure out what they made per hour and you figure out how many minutes late the meeting started, and that's what it cost you. And so that was an inducement to reduce that time.
Thank goodness that doesn't apply here, in my opinion. This meeting is free.
Yeah, I know.
No, it's just a lot of people show up late through no fault of their own, and it's just on the whole nicer for the group. We start a little bit after the start time. And if I followed your advice, I would change the meeting time to 5:50 Pacific.
That could work.
But that would be even worse.
Yeah, it's kind of nice having a little just social thing before the meeting proper.
Exactly. So the shooting the breeze is always my favorite part of any corporate meeting anyway.
Or you can ask some stupid question that's on your
10
mind.
minutes past. Anyway, we're there. So welcome everyone to California Smalltalkers for March. We have Ken Dickey as our featured speaker this month on evolution and lessons learned using MetaProperties. And we like to start these gatherings with some lightning talks. And I noticed from the meetup page that Alfonso has already volunteered to do one. So we'll start with him if he's here, and then see if anyone else has one. Alfonso?
Yeah. Let me see if I can. Oh, I can share screen through here. That's interesting. Okay.
And sorry, one note here. I'm going to mute everyone. Then Alfonso, you can unmute yourself.
Oh.
So Alfonso, why don't you unmute yourself?
I would love to if I can only get past through these apps.
Sorry about that.
No, that's quite all right. I'm trying to figure out how to. There we go.
Hey, Dan.
Hey. Didn't think I could make it, but I got a little bit of time.
Okay. Trying to figure out how to exit this slideshow and go to the one I had just uploaded to iCloud. I hope you're all able to at least see the screen that's going on.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Not the one I want. This is not the new one, but I guess it'll have to do is a lightning talk, right? So perfection is not required. So I've been doing work since 2009. So we all know about design patterns, or I take it for granted we know about design patterns or have heard about them. In 2000, I had heard about them, but was not really intimately familiar with them until I began trying to dissect them back in 2009. And the problem with for me, was that I could not make sense of distinguishing between the different patterns, their purpose and what they achieved, what they solved. The Gang of Four had written or categorized them as behavioral, creational, and structural, but that to me was not fine-grained enough to understand how they applied the different things. So I began breaking it down. So I took some, like from interpreter and these other patterns that were in the group, and was able to see that they changed the scope or the size that they solved of the problem that they solved. So from that, for example, the interpreter as the top basically encompasses the entire solution space. Is one way of doing it. It's creates I guess a system in which you can solve a problem. And then the next group of patterns basically were ways to connect different objects together to do some particular work, to be part of the system. The next group basically had changes in behavior for a particular component just by using a different class or different object. You would have a different behavior at that point. Then the strategy was this one, it's the behavior is known or the output is known, but the mechanism used to solve that problem varies based on whether it changes a cache, whether the type of data is of a particular size, or what have you. So you would just switch objects to have a different algorithm used. And then the template method is just the design pattern where you have some basic method that has hooks in them through which you can replace elements that the template method calls other methods that actually have changes in them so that you can reuse the calling pattern or the calling object. So once I understood these these differences between them, I just grouped that as scoping patterns for all these different classes and added some other patterns that basically allowed you to set the size of the scope that you're trying to have a simple design for, or a more sophisticated design. So I had extended that to be the whole system, how the whole system works, whether it's client server or monolithic application in the system or what have you, as well as basic executable sequences, so method enclosure and whatnot. Okay, so this is, again, this is from an old version. So then going back to the list that they had before, I went through some more of these patterns and tried to figure out what they did. And I took these, wow, this is old. Okay. I grouped these into, I took a set of patterns that had similar purpose for their solution. And they're basically different ways of doing the fundamental message sending, the dispatch, where you have the receiver, the selector, and the arguments. So for these patterns that the Gang of Four had cataloged, these were patterns that allowed you to have basically an object that was can be selected dynamically at runtime that the sender does not know which one is going to handle it. So there are different ways of doing that with these four patterns, or the three patterns, that the ones that is receiving these the message.
Let's try to go for 2 more minutes.
Okay, so then the design pattern where you're going to capture the entire message which was saved is basically the command pattern. So this became my list of dispatch patterns, and I used it to basically create a distinguish between patterns that allowed you to have different receivers or different selected dynamically, patterns that change the behavior based on the arguments or the invocation with the command. Okay, now there's a whole bunch of other stuff. And then with that in mind, it's basically what design patterns that look at the message sending mechanism and how, like a regular message, you can change the behavior based on the receiver and what you want the behavior to do. So just like a regular message, you can record a message, you can route a message, you can log it and play it back later, etc. And then the final group was what they called the creational, and I just made I figured that those were life cycle patterns. And so those life cycles, the different patterns represented changes in how an object is created, the state used to save or create their states, and controlling the population. I'll go back to that. And basically that's it.
Cool. Thanks. Maybe we'll have one question and then move on to Ken. Does anyone have a question? Oh, and you're all muted, except for Dan, I think, and Ken. I'll take this opportunity to reintroduce myself. I'm Craig Latta, and the other host of California Smalltalkers here is Dan Ingalls. And Ken, are you ready?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why
why don't you take it away?
Okay, well, we'll see if my computer is ready. I'm using an old ARM Chromebook, which is the only thing that I have that has a working camera and stuff. And so I actually have 3 images up, Smalltalk images that are sort of various points in time as we're dealing with evolution. And I've also got this live internet connection. So we'll see the images may be a little bit slow, so I'll try to pace myself accordingly and so forth. So let me see if we can figure this out, and I can find out if I can get there and get the right window. And let's see, vanilla. Okay, let's try that. So the first thing is, can you see Quiz? Okay,
Yep.
Here, and I've got to switch from here into the Quiz image so that I'm seeing the same thing you are. Hey, okay. So this is basically a vanilla Quiz image, fairly recent. There are 0 packages loaded. And it's weighing in now. It's just under 600 classes. And so what I want to do is I want to talk really about kind of UI design problems. And what I started with, which is this, my first approximation, the solution that I put up to do what kind of I wanted to do. The problems that I found that had led to, and then what I have done since to ameliorate, to make the better world a little bit better than what I started out with, and we'll see how I did. And hopefully there's enough design experience out there, you might come up with some other alternatives that would be even cooler and like that. So what I'm going to do is talk about morphs. I'm going to grab a label morph. This is kind of a running thing. I was fortunate enough in the 90s to work in Apple Research Labs for a while on Skate. And that was a multimedia environment where basically it was for multimedia authors that just had a bunch of palettes and would splat media down together and then add behaviors and stuff. And so my brain has been affected by that. And I keep sort of walking back to that. So this little label thing up here, when I open a menu and click on the push pin so it stays around, can do some things to it. I can go ahead and give it a slightly larger font. I don't have any additional fonts or anything there. I can change the emphasis, make it bold. If I go to change the color, well, that isn't there because it hasn't been loaded and so forth. So you have to use some way of doing that. And so the natural thing to do then is to bring up an inspector. And so if you want to play around with morphs and put them together and do interesting things with them, you know, you can say, okay, self color. I better cap right. Sausage fingers, sorry about that. The highlighting helps, and do it, and so forth. But this already breaks me up. It puts a hill in there, a gradient. I have to go over the hill. I have to type something. I have to remember what the selectors are like, and so forth. And so what I'm aiming for is just a way to make morphs a little more approachable and a little more fluid, and how you can get together and interact with them. And so now I want to go and see if we can get over to the second image, if I can find out. And so we have to come back here and ping pong. Is that going to do anything for me? Yeah, window and older image. And share that. Okay, so hopefully you see a mostly blue image. And let me find it on this screen. Hey, so it should say older visual property UI. Is that what you see? Hopefully. Okay. So this, actually, I probably should show you that this has the world load. This has vector graphics in it, so the true type font, pretty nice and like that. And if I take a look at installed packages, we've got graphics stuff and UI stuff and vector graphics and a bunch of components and like that. And I guess I should show that just for truth in advertising, let's see, workspace, yada, yada. Make this a little smaller maybe. Sorry about that. Less real estate. Okay, so small. Oops, get there. My fingers are willing to type. It'd be great. And so this weighs in about just under 800 classes. So I've got bunches of stuff loaded as far as Queese is concerned. And so now we'll go ahead and grab a label morph again. I mean, we can do this with tons of morphs, but as I say, it's just useful to have a running commentary here. And now when I get the morph menu, you see it's quite a bit larger. Well, push pin in so I don't lose it. Yeah, it's a little slower with all the images loaded. Okay, and so the idea is that there are shallow waters and deep waters when it comes to changing instance variables, properties, what have you. And the advantage of morphs, the visual properties of morphs, is mostly they're just values. They're colors, they're points, they're integers, they're fonts, they're whatever it is. But they don't have a lot of entailments in terms of the constraints and complex models that when you try to do something general. But you can do something general with the visual properties of morphs. And the idea here is to make them approachable. Not only you can see the values, but that if you click, then you can go ahead and immediately get up and an editor or a set of palettes or whatever to go ahead and play with things and set the font. And now we got, make something we can see. And with colors, there are, if you go to Wikipedia, you see a lot of name color dictionaries. People have their own favorites for collections of name colors. I'm just going to use crayon colors because it's a small set. And so you'd like to be able to go ahead and say, oh, gee, I like this yellow, say, laser lemon. That sounds good. And so, sorry. I want to grab that and drop it on there. And there was a little, I don't know if you've noticed, there's a little green box that gave you the feedback that it's okay that you can drop a color on there. And if I try to drop a color on something, it takes a number, then I get a little X that says, oh yeah, a little red X. I mean, it's just a brief visual affordance that something's not appropriate. And so, let's see, give it a border width, I don't know. So let's go ahead now and, sorry. Sorry, my mouse ran into a separate keyboard I have here. Makes it harder to move when it's up against it. I'll go ahead and clone this so I have something to play with. And now if I try to drop a color on something directly, that's not going to work. But if I don't want to have a bunch of these menus up, which are fine, it's just they take up a lot of screen real estate, I can use a draw target. Some of you may remember Magic Lens back from the 90s. My brain is still in the 90s, I guess. And the idea is to have an affordance that sits between something like a morph and your tool set, and it knows how to deal with both sides. It acts as an intermediary. And so if I take a color here and drop it on, then I get, we don't know what specific property it is, but I get a choice set of all the things that will accept a color. And so I can go ahead and make some changes, and that does a reasonable thing and whatnot. And so that the intermediary allows you to do things without having multiple menus up. And the other thing with when you start having multiple menus up, then it's easy to get confused. You got a bunch of labels you're sharing with. Whoops. Oh, sorry, I forgot to hit the push pin. And try that to keep it around. That's better. And so now if I change the contents to, I don't know, me too. And accept that. I can also drag things back and forth. And when I drag something that doesn't have a visual representation, what I get is a sign morph, which is just a little thing that shows its print string and has a reference to the object. So I have a value to drag and drop across from one thing to another. And if I change a font, let's see, maybe, okay, just maybe I like that font a little better. I can drag that across. So again, that's the font morph, just prints out what it is. And when you get confused because you've got too many of these things, you can say show the target halo, so you know which particular morph is associated with what particular menu. And so you're not going to get confused that way. And so again, the idea is just to allow a little more visibility and a little more fluidity of interaction, what's going on. And let me go ahead and show that again with, bring up a color mix editor. And that's a pretty ugly color. Let's just put something different there. So you can drop a color in here and play with that color directly. Usual 2D slice through a 3D color cube with the elevator being the third dimension, and HSB and all that kind of good stuff. And this shows, small color swatch shows the closest named CSS3 color if you're using web colors. And if you like that better, then you can just take that and drop it on here. And you'll see now, let's see, I'll change that again. So you, something that's not a whip. Okay, here we are, 24 Charlie, 371. So you just see that's obviously a different color that goes there. And then of course you can take colors from wherever they are and drop them on and have that happen. So you can just get used to being able to have something, single click edits, and you know, whatever editor is appropriate for that thing. I'm not going to deal with layouts today, but single click edits, or you can drag and drop a value from one area to another. And again, let's see, I guess before I go on out of this, I ought to show you in brief just the gist of how this is all put together behind the scenes. It's because it's actually fairly straightforward. The annotating these properties visually, I call them MetaProperties because they're about properties, and they're immutable and they're shared, so they're pretty lightweight. So let me go ahead and file list, and yeah, sorry, I got a lot of images up now. So let's try this. Saves that. Yeah, MetaProp. Just I could open a text editor on this, but this is good for our purposes. I just want to show you behind the scenes a little bit. So MetaProperties look like this, where you have some named things like accepts a point or accepts a color or whatever it happens to be, and you at that selector you put a MetaProperty which takes only points, and it has an edit procedure which takes a morph, MetaProp, and a menu item, and in this case it brings up a point entry panel. And so if I go here and oops, sorry, if I go and click on a point, then I get an editor for points, and the name of the selector is up here. And so it's easy to build for any particular morph. It's easy to build something that does the right thing. And again, all of the points share this one MetaProperty, so it makes them fairly lightweight. And if we take a look, okay, we'll catch up in a second. Come on, we can do it. We can do it here. I might have to close a couple of images. That's a problem with net traffic plus everything else. Oh, well, shocking. Okay, I may have to, I guess I have too much going on in a small computer. So I'll come back to that. So let me kill off some of these things. Sorry about that. I haven't tried this. I'm just going through and.
No worries.
Okay, so I've at least killed off 2 of the 3 images. Okay. Let me try resurrecting that one again. Okay. And so we have to get back to the control structures for here. there, sharing, back to window, back to the older image, back to share. And now we see it once again, boredom. Okay, here we are. So now if I can find boredom, there we are. So I'll just go ahead and I don't know, maybe get a ellipse morph, one of my favorites, and get something up. I won't show you the rest of the code behind that. But it's all, you know, the MetaProperty code, it's all very straightforward code, and it allows you to go through and for any, when you take a morph and you want the MetaProperties, you just take and there's just a dictionary that indexes off the class, and then it goes up the class hierarchy and gathers all the properties above it. So MetaProperties are immutable and shared and inheritable. And so when you create a new a morph that has some interesting visual properties, then all you have to do is augment the things that aren't inherited for that particular thing and as part of the initializer. So anyway, but what I wanted to show you, go ahead and bring a color editor up again, are the problems that this led to. And come on, we can do it. Okay, color mix editor. Yeah, I'm getting back into the 90s with my CPU too, I guess. So there are three problems I identified here. One is that when what can I drag from, you know, and what can I drag to? Those are two problems. It's not obvious what things are draggable. So dragging from and dragging to, what's different? And these properties look a lot like other things in the menu. And I didn't make them, I made them special, but I didn't make them look special. And you know, what's the difference between something here with a little box and something down here with a little icon, which might have a white color or something like that? And so that's a UI design mistake, making something special but not making it look special. And the other thing is I was inconsistent on how I handled feedback. So if I take a color and try to put it up here, it just, you know, what does that do? It just disappears. Whereas, see, like this thing, I've got some kind of a sine morph, and I try to drag that, and it doesn't take it. Well, then you know, it's not hard to get rid of, but it doesn't give much feedback, and it's not very consistent. So those are the three things that I'm trying to fence post here. You know, what can I drag from? What can I drag to? And you know, making sure that the feedback is consistent. And part of that is because early on, I took a shortcut. I didn't implement the full drag and drop mechanics, but what I did is in this version, you take something and you drop it somewhere, and it always rejects the drop, but then does the right thing first. And that is not a way to get good feedback to your user. And so that was another mistake that I made. And so what I'd like to do now is blow this away and show you what I've done to try to fix that. Yeah, we can get that away. And so now let's get the world closer to today. So I want to come back and try to get this other image up. And okay, so now you ought to see something slightly less boring, but still there. Okay. So you can see we've got, you know, 10 zillion packages in there, and you know, almost somewhat under 800 classes. I have to say that if I open the base image up, this really speaks to packaging strategy and composition strategy, because if I open up a Squeak image, it's like, I don't know, 2,500, maybe 2,700 classes, somewhere in that range. And if I open up a Pharaoh image, it's like 10,000 classes. And I know sometimes you're dealing with commercial situations and you really need that many classes to do things, but you know, it's a lot for my small brain. So I'm happy in this environment. So I want to show some things about that. So we'll get our old friend here a label morph. Okay, and now when I get a menu, okay, you see the things that are. Oops. Sorry about that. I will get that menu back. I forgot to push pin, not a single shot. Okay, so the now the things that are different look different. So at least you get the question of what's here and what can I do here and why are these things purple? And I wasn't wedded to purple, but it just gives the idea that something is different. And so these act just the same as in the previous case, but at least they give you a clue that this part of the menu is different than what we saw before. And if I take a look at, let's get a color mix editor here, which now starts with the color that's there. So sometimes it's a little strange with pure colors or whatever. Now I have added an alpha control so we can control the opacity. And what I've done here, if you see, these have gone purple. The visual properties have gone purple. And there are little purple boxes around these affordances. And there's some feedback in terms of the balloon help. So I know this is a drag, this is a color with an alpha value. This is the pure color without the alpha. And this is the closest web color. And so every time we do a mouse enter, it does a little flash, which is something to attract the eye, to make it clue people in that things are, you know, that there's something special going on here. So again, just a clue that we might do something interesting here. And so when we do the drag and drop stuff, that there's an association there that might be useful. Let's see, what else was I going to say about this? Oh, feedback, yes. So now, in this case, the feedback's consistent. If I take a color and I try to drop it directly, it says, no, I won't do that. I won't take a border width and so forth. I can, you know, if I drop something on the desktop, you know, as I say, I've just done the full drag and drop mechanics, which allows me to give appropriate feedback. So if I try to drop a layout spec onto if something takes a color, it tells me in no uncertain terms it's not there. I can't really, if I pick something up, if I tried to find all possible drop targets that would take an emphasis, that means I basically have to look at the whole user interface to find that sort of thing. And that doesn't make a lot of sense because it's just too computationally intensive. Let me go ahead and show a drop target here. Whereas if I take, oops, hello, sorry about that. If I drag that off and drop it, now we can go through and check all the MetaProperties for that morph, and everything that accepts the emphasis here, or in this case, the emphasis is interpreted as a string, it'll take a string. We've got something that behaves rationally across the board in terms of being able to look things up and give a choice set of possible interactions there. So those are the three, the way of my sort of way of handling those three problems that I identified. And I have, I guess, a couple things side trips I should take here. The reason I put the opacity here is that, oops, sorry, let me get a new morph, is that I started playing around with Juan's cool vector graphics stuff. And, oops, morph, vector graphics. And so once you start doing these sorts of things, like this has this nice thing with this opacity here. And so if you come through and about something like, I don't know, an orange or maybe a bright red, that looks good. Oh, fire brick, that's cool. Let's try that. So you can take a full color and have the solid color be on the border. Oops, oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Let me go and actually change the colors of the thing I'm thinking about. That would help. You can take the solid color and give it the fill color and then have the same color, but with an alpha value as the interior color, and have what you expect. And again, the idea is just fluidity, making things more approachable. And as long as I have you here, I've got to show a couple of cool things. So this is going around 0, 0, but if I take the center and move it around a little bit, you notice it's actually rotating around the corner point, the lower left, the origin and the rect. And if we take a look at the code for that, I should have just, sorry, I should have just done it this way. Hello. Browse and morph class. You can see actually how little code is actually here. So most of this stuff actually has to do with accessors. The drawing routines, at least the ones I've been doing, are really trivial. Sort of, pass through, call the underlying vector engine. And the geometry, you can say what the rotation center is. So in this case, it's the, hello, still a little slow. I'll blame the network connection. Okay, it's the origin, which is the lower left corner in this case. And this is something that Juan put in that is, oh, I love it. I love it. I learned to graph functions before having access to computers, and y-axis always pointed up. And here you have a case where each morph has its own coordinate system. We got a bunch of nested coordinate systems. And having an axis where you see this is positive and this is negative, the negative 50 down there. Having y point up, I mean, I've always understood intellectually, but having y value increasing down with computer graphics did something to warp my brain. And this unwarps my brain. So I have to give Juan a big hand for this because he's just done a wonderful job. So I guess it was good that he got locked in his basement by COVID or something, and that was the jailer, and so on and so forth, because anyway, I think that's pretty cool. And the other thing is, let's see, just a quick comment on design. If I can capture this, here we are. I thought about edit lens and stuff, and doing these control points on in some sort of editing affordance, but I realized that I could just add the control points to the construction halo, and that was just a natural way of doing this kind of stuff. But adding some control points and having the graphics do all the right things, I just, again, have to hand it to Juan. This is just, it's a lot of fun to play with. So I would recommend it, and all of that stuff. Okay. Let's see. I think there was one. Oh yeah, I just wanted to show one other wacky thing. In this case, let me get a inspector up. Okay, one of my experiments. I tend to be empirical. I tend to experiment a lot and have some theories and try different things out, do some experiments. So I'm kind of a scientist when it comes to Smalltalk. I don't know the whole world, and my things evaporate. So I'm continually coming back and relearning things. For more self, that's just a long way of doing it since I don't have that part as a menu topic. This is one of my experiments. Oh, wait a minute. I guess if I actually want to see it, I should probably open it. Okay, that's cool. So I actually made kind of a property editor. And so this, this has the things I just showed to you. I thought about, with B Smalltalk, of just a message window. So it's right there. So, you could type at it conveniently. And then you could show the variable, the non-visual properties, and actually show the, if it has other properties down here. So there's actually a property list, and you can show all that kind of stuff. And this kind of got killed off by restraint. It was pointed out that we already have something to type in right here with the inspector, and we already have the types of access, that either the menu gives you, or things that are going on over here. And this other stuff, since I can't click on these to edit them because they're a little more complex, that's not really adding. I mean, it looks more colorful than an inspector, but it's not really adding anything to the user's ability to do interesting things. And so that's one area where it's sometimes good to be restrained and not put things in. So that's one of, I guess, the lessons of Quis is the aesthetics and restraint are the hardest things to teach. And so one tries to be somewhat disciplined for that. Whew. Okay, so one more thing. Sorry, Apple, one more thing. Okay, let's see. I think this isn't loaded, but let's, this is something, it's a proof of concept that I just added. And, okay. All right, looks like it took it in. That's always good. Because the question is, where am I going with this? And so the idea is to, when you're doing some type of interface, what you'd like to be able to do is take a bunch of morphs, put them together, and then you can see how to write that code fairly easily. But sometimes you'd like to play around and keep something around. And this leads to a problem I'll discuss in a second. But first I need to go, you have to forgive me for a second, so I go through and just put something together here. Want a composite morph, so I need to embed into the layout morph. Okay, move that over a little bit. Okay, maybe this is pretty random stuff. So, oh yeah, wheel morph is pretty cool. This is just kind of a thumb wheel. So I'm just going to go ahead and embed that as well. Hello, into layout morph. All right, and that'll get added to the layout. And maybe my old friend, the ellipse morph. Yeah. Oops. Nested menu is great fun. Okay. One thing you'll also notice, this is something that Juan did, I think is really cool. If I open a menu and move it to one side, when I say, oops, trying to push pin again. Okay. All right. Definitely slow. When I say embed into, there are multiple possible targets. So if there's the layout morph here, you see the layout highlighted. If I want it, I'm also over the top of a box morph, so that's a potential target. And so how, if you look on the right, you can see what the thing I'm selecting makes a difference on the left. So I can actually make sure that I'm really dropping it, you know, embedding into the thing that I want to embed into, rather than something just happens to be located similarly. And I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, make that a little larger. And then now I can go ahead and play with this a little bit and bring up an editor from the menu. And so maybe I'll give it some separation. Hello. And I don't want a row, I want a column, and I want to be centered rather than the top or left. And maybe something like a nice light blue cyan, that's a good color. And I say update, and voila, we have a you know, a column rather than a row, and you know, it does the right things. So once I have something like this, sometimes I want to come back to it later, and I want to have an easy way to do that. And so again, this is new, so I haven't integrated this stuff, but let's bring up an inspector, and I want to say oops, pardon me. Let's go back down here. There we are, a little slow. Self, save as package, okay. So what I'm gonna do here is I want to save this composite morph as basically a rough file stream, just, you know, pickle it to disk. But if I take this, open this in a different image somewhere, I need the backing code for it, because these morphs are created in different packages. And so what I'm going to do is create a unique name, and let's see, so maybe magic demo, because a demo is, magic is indistinguishable from a rigged demo, and we'll call it that. And my initials, because I haven't done that yet, is Candy, and yeah, that's me. And okay, so we save magic demo as a package, okay? And now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to quit without saving. I hope you're seeing all this on your screen here. Yeah, I really want to exit that. And now, let me go back, and I have to get a new new image again. So all right, so now I have to go back to control structure surface, and find a window and select the window and say share the window. And hopefully we're now back at the vanilla image. And now, since this is a package, I can say feature require. I love command completion because my sausage fingers are don't do well. Magic demo. Okay, and if I do that, then hopefully things will go well. And Okay, sorry. I saved it on a newer image. The thing about packaging in Quis is that it actually checks for the prerequisites, and it checks that they're at the right version level. And I'm one closer there on that. So I have to install new updates. Shouldn't take that long, right? And try to do it again. And this time I think this will succeed. And so what it's doing is it saved the information as a package to require all of the backing code that the composite morph requires. It goes through as it saves things, and you have you get everything back that you had because it's gone and loaded the packages that were required for that. And if you take a look at the package editor, you see that there are not that many packages here. Where the image this was created in, there were a zillion packages. So it allows you actually to be in an enriched tool environment and then create something that you can bring up in a much smaller and simpler world and have everything together. And again, have everything required automatically brought in with the features checked and so forth. And if you update this, then it actually goes, the system actually goes through and checks all the packages you have loaded to see if there's a newer package, so that when you do things, you might want to update your view of the world or update a requirement and so forth. So just this composition strategy, which has the provide require mechanism and allows it to check and assist you, and to be able to go through with a package browser and have color coded so you know what the newer code is that you haven't loaded yet. You can react to changes in the world around you. Is really pretty cool stuff. Okay, so that's it. This is stuff that's out there, and let me see if I can back out of all of this stuff and into the workaday world or whatever. And stop sharing. Okay, I'm back.
Hey.
Now you can look at the really boring stuff. So
Thanks, Ken.
I survived the entire experiment.
Where do we find this stuff?
Well, you find it in Quis repositories. If you go to the Quis Smalltalk on GitHub, there's a Quis Smalltalk dev for the developer, and it has instructions there about how to download an image and all that kind of stuff. And when you create the Quis Smalltalk directory from GitHub, then you can say clone all repos, and it'll go through and it will take all the standard repositories and put them in the same directory level as your Quis Smalltalk dev. So I have a Quis Smalltalk, and then under that a Quis Smalltalk dev, and then I've got a Quis Smalltalk UI and Morphic and yada yada, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I did here that is not in there yet is that I have a repository in Ken Dickey under GitHub, which is Quis Smalltalk baby steps, which is stuff that hasn't been released yet, because the stuff that did this, the save as package is called Morphic Packager, and it's his own package, and that allows you to go ahead and save and restore. And I'm still, I just did that code like yesterday, the day before. So I just, I thought of it in the evening, and I thought, wait a minute, if I just thread these things together, then I can save a composite morph and have the code go through, make a set of the packages that those morphs use, and then create a package which requires each of those. And that's what I did. And so that I still have to go through and check for things like vector graphics, fonts, and that kind of stuff. But as you see, the main thing is there. You can go through and save something away and as a package, and you load that package, and it brings in all the requisite codes. So you have the backing code that allows you to have all those morphs resurrected and be live and that kind of stuff. And version checked, all that good stuff. So it's just nice to have a tool set that works together like that.
Cool.
And other than that, you got my email right here. You can send me nasty grams or whatever, and I'll hide or help you out or something, you know. Okay, so that's that's it.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Any questions?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
Christian?
And other ideas for different.
You're muted, Christian. Oh, there you go. Sorry, Ken?
Sorry. I was saying any also suggestions for other ways of doing things to make things more apparent, affordances, make things easier for people to clue in on, that kind of stuff. But yeah, sorry.
That's what I want to get at. So I think it's really cool, and especially your approach to have direct feedback and stuff. I really like a lot, and I try to implement my stuff as well like that. So with drag and drop, I have that problem as well in my software, the Smalltalk, the starting software, and I solve it a little bit different. I mean, it's of course probably not applicable to your stuff because it's a menu, but to indicate that something has an affordance to do something, I draw a little shadow. That means it looks like hovering, the element is hovering a little bit over the plane so that you can grab it and do something with it. And that only happens when I move the mouse into the proper windows. That means for picking something up, for dragging, when I go with the mouse over your menu, which has all menu items looking just normal, in the moment I move my mouse into that, the active ones, which are purple in your case, would get a little shadow. And then you see, wait, there's something going on. And especially this transition that you have something new catches your attention. So you will find these things easy. But of course, you have to be active. You have to move your mouse to find it. The other thing is when you drop things, I do different than you. You also have this. Okay, this is actually one criticism, that you only give the feedback if something is droppable after you drop it. I cannot hear you. You're muted, Ken. Sorry.
Apologies. I was muting myself so I wouldn't step on what you were saying. So yeah, it's just a little green box or a red X. But yeah, I'm not doing anything highly interesting after that. So
Well,
you were suggesting on the drop?
Yeah, you should show that while dragging, I think, so that you really know what's going on. But I solve this problem differently by highlighting the targets you can drop things on and dimming all the rest. So that means I repaint the interface by just mixing everything with white, half, so it looks really pale, and only the pieces where you can drop things at, I either highlight explicitly or I just leave them. So you see, okay, the gray areas are off limit, but this guy I can use, and then I can drop it on. So just suggestions, but I mean, we're on the same path here anyway.
Okay, well, great. Yeah, as I say, what I found is if you try to highlight all possible drop targets when you take something out, finding all of those means you're basically going through all the morphs and submorphs in the interface, and that's just computationally expensive. And it would just seem too slow and whatnot.
Especially in the general case. I mean, I have a fairly restricted case, and it works. Yeah.
Yeah, but great. I got those things, so I can try that. Yeah, I do know I have used drop shadows in the past, and in the past I found them just a bit slow. But that was, a couple, about maybe several years ago now. I won't say how long ago. Things have speeded up quite a bit since then. So that's another thing to revisit. So that's an excellent suggestion.
Besides Ken, we have new features. We have the bit mask for vector graphics morphs. I don't know if you looked at it. I implemented it for a multi-selection tool that Hilaire wanted in Dr. Geo, and that could help us have cheap shadows again, if you want. Okay, maybe the shadow idea we can revisit and do a new implementation that hopefully will be simpler and faster.
And I would suggest Ron is the person to do it, because that little extra, when you're dropping something onto an embed and having it highlight, based on the menu, having it highlight the object, so you know what you're actually embedding into, is really, really handy for that. I really like that. So, anyway, so pat you on the head, Juan. Anyway, thank you much. Thank you much for this. It's quiz. It's a lot of fun.
Well, you make it really shine, right? you're adding a lot of the stuff that was missing for a rich user experience, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well, it's community effort, as I say, if you keep putting names on every brick there, I mean, you could do that, but the best thing to do is just try to make nice houses or whatever structure you're building.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's great. It's good to work together.
Let's do this.
So I guess depart in radiant contentment.
Any more
Other
questions?
suggestions for, or questions or suggestions for better affordances?
A suggestion. So one difference between Morphic and other object-oriented user interfaces is that sometimes they split the functionality into little pieces. So for example, a circle object is just a circle, and then you have to put it in a translation inside a translation object that will then position it on the screen, and then you put it in a color wrapper object that will give it its color or its border or whatever. So you create this huge tree of objects. And now, and if they're just like what you want, then you can change the color for this color wrapper, and then 5 different objects will change their color. So all the buttons in the button row will always be the same color, so they can all be red, or they all can be green, or whatever. So in Morphic, every morph is almost a standalone object. It has its submorphs, but everyone does its own thing. Everyone has its color, everyone has its origin or whatever. So that makes doing some of the stuff that's easy in the other frameworks a little bit harder. So it would be nice if you could somehow select a subset of objects, for example, select all the buttons in a row, and then the menu would pop up, not for one button, but the intersection of what you can do for all those 5 buttons. So when you change the color, the 5 buttons.
Multi-select. You can multi-select and drop one color in all of them. Yeah, that's a cool idea. I like that. Let me. I got to make some notes here. So.
It's a little bit awkward to figure out a graphical way of being able to select. I imagine something like in the text show, the IDE, where you can select all senders or all. There should be some way of selecting a subset, and then you could generate a menu for the intersection and then manipulate them as a group. And that would actually be way better than the alternative user interfaces, because there you structure the tree, but sometimes you want to do something different than how the tree was structured, and then you can't do that in these alternative things. So if you can have this group that's easy to set up and then easy to tear down, so that you can then group things in a different way. For example, if you have a complex morph like the color picker, for example, if you were to show the halos, I bet that you have 3 columns inside a row, inside whatever, in buttons. So in different times, you want to change several of them, but which of the several ones are different in different times. So I was sort of inspired in this idea in the morphic inside self. You had something that was called the carpet morph. So if you clicked on the background, and then you dragged, it generated a rectangle, and then it would pop up every morph that's inside that to be on top of this carpet morph. So then you could drag. So you could select with the carpet morph about you have a bunch of ellipses and arrows or whatever. Then you'd create a carpet morph, and then they'd all pop up, so you should see their shadow. And now you could move them around, but you couldn't do anything else with them. Just move them around, and then
we could do that.
So I don't think we have carpet morph in Squeak, but you get the idea. So I thought, well, why can't we only drag them around or embed them? Why can't we change the color or do any of the other stuff when we select these? So it's just a suggestion. But.
Well, again, that's what I've sort of done prototypical here with these MetaProperties. It's just to get at least the visual aspects able to present themselves and have an editor for them, or have the drag behavior and so forth. So I like uniformity. Multi-select, the other thing you can do is do a multi-select with a parameterization. So if you have, you could select a number of morphs, and then you want to take a position, but you want the like the left edge to be aligned, but then the right depend on some algorithmic aspect and like that. So you can get arbitrarily complex. I'm trying to, I as much as we can do visually without confusion to make things easier and give things a flow, I think that would be good. Another way of doing the multi-select is to do it the opposite way, which is to say, I want to make this, treat this like a tool, and this particular color I want to drop on every morph that I touch, or the font or whatever it happens to be. So we could do it the other way too, and it wouldn't take that long, and it might be easier than a multi-select. But we'll just have to. The great thing about this is we get to play around, and I like to think about taking the walls out. You take the blinders off and the walls out. We can do that in Smalltalk. Just it's really fun.
Yeah, another thing that was found it interesting that you had those things like the magic lenses. One thing that I'd want to do is an interface like that has these magic lenses to change what your clicks do, would be to use the two hands simultaneously. I mean, you can't do that with only a mouse, but if you have something like an iPad or whatever, where you could be touching with two hands, so you drag a lens from the left and something from the right, and they meet in the middle on top of the morph that you want to change.
Yeah, I got a Pine phone, and I got Quiz up on the Pine phone and like that. But without a keyboard, I find it's just for my sausage fingers and my old eyes, it's too small a screen, and it's I can type with my thumbs a little, but it's for me it's not the ideal interface. A laptop is for me.
Do you say you got Quiz up on the Pine phone?
Yeah.
I'm curious, which OS are you running on it?
I think Manjaro.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been running that on most of my Linux systems, just because I like Arch Linux, and Manjaro is a nice packaging of that, and it seems fairly robust and fairly solid. So,
cool.
I mean, I try all kinds of things with different things, and certainly for like the lay potato, I use Armbian and yada yada. But generally, Joe Linux somewhere. As they say with a lot of commercial OSs, why would you buy a car with a hood welded shut? So I like to get in there, make some changes, whatever. Okay, well, great seeing you all. I think why don't we wind it up here, and you can see my email address, at least for the near present, and So you can look at GitHub and look at the quiz stuff there, and I recommend it, and it's fun to play with. And it's like anything else. It's not everything for everybody, but being compact in terms of size just makes I think comprehension easier. And there's we're trying to leave the breadcrumbs. So for example, when I figured out, going down to the bottom on the drag and drop stuff, I wrote a little thing which is now in the quiz documentation, which is just, goes through the code to show how the little bits across the classes work together to do the drag and drop and, that sort of thing. And so we're just trying add a little documentation or a little video or something as we go along and try to help everybody out. Anyway.
Cool.
Okay.
Thanks, Ken. And I can stick around until the top of the hour if people would like to continue chatting or whatnot.
Okay. I have a completely off-topic thing, but since you're in quiz, I don't know if you know about the effort of porting PDF talk to non-namespace Smalltalks. That includes first Squeak and Vast. And I thought quiz would be a really nice candidate for that too. Is there any interest in PDF for quiz? I mean, it gets you 400 more classes there, so it's a big, like a package. But I don't know if you're interested. So the project's well on the go. So for Vast, one little baby step was done. So that's a values package I use as a base for all my stuff. So that's ported. Squeak will be ported, finish the value stuff in, let's say, 3 days. Give me 3 days, maybe 2. And then I have to I have to implement class renaming stuff for my transformations, and then I can go on with the PDF talk. So I expect to have a first port in one of the dialects in maybe 1 or 2 months. So, and then I document everything very carefully on a wiki so that other people can follow each step along. And I publish all the artifacts in between, all the states on GitHub so people can actually try it out. And I would love to have somebody in quiz or who is familiar with quiz to help for his quiz port maybe.
Yeah, I think that PDF for quiz would be a great thing to have, especially because it could turn quiz into a publishing tool, right? You can build your vector graphic morphs and all your stuff, and if you want to share with people who are not using Smalltalk and don't need the full interactivity, you can just create a PDF that looks exactly the same, because PDF is vector graphics based. So it's a perfect match. It's something we should have, indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially with your vector graphics, you actually have a good chance to have a native PDF viewer. So that would be something really, really cool.
Yeah, that's true. We could perhaps, I don't know how your PDF stuff works actually, but given that we can read and create morphs from SVG files, perhaps we could do the same with PDF files. So not just a viewer, but creating actual morphs to represent each object in a PDF file, right?
I think it's a perfect match. I think it will be just matching one-to-one very easily. I mean, SVG and PDF is exactly the same graphics model, basically, and I don't see any problem. I will actually add an SVG output to my small chart stuff. So instead of the PDF backend, I will also have a SVG backend. So I think it's not a big deal. So
I actually wrote an SVG reader for quiz when I started working with vector graphics, because it was a great way to exercise what I was doing and to be sure I was on the right track. I took a lot of inspiration from SVG. Um,
I have a suggestion. Sometimes we start out with a grand plan and we've got a whole deep feature set and we do ports from one thing to another. And the ports can take a short infinity of time sometimes. And a different strategy is the rings of growth strategy, which is to say, okay, let's define something that's a micro PDF that is like a test case that is a prototype which gets, you're showing proof of ability to do something and able to take a bunch of things together. And then you have a mini PDF, and then you have full PDF or maxi PDF or whatever you call it, and as a set of sort of nested projects where each one provides a few more features, and you're able to then test up to a level to pass the the unit tests or that feature set for that particular ring of growth. Because for me, my old head, it doesn't do the grand plan anymore. If I can get into a place where I can tinker my way to success. I know how to muddle through, but coming up with a grand plan and then implementing the grand plan, for me anyway, is a lot of work before I feel I have enough stuff to get from A to B. But a small project which demonstrates success and is on the way to something larger is interesting.
Okay, so there's 2 comments for that. First one is you describe exactly the process I'm in. So I implemented PDF since 15 years, and it started exactly as you said, as a little experiment, see if it works, and then it grew and grew and grew. But of course, with PDF, you have the first initial hurdle to implement the core engine. You cannot implement parts of it. It's just not possible. So you have to implement the whole thing or nothing. Until you don't have the ability to represent PDF objects properly and vice versa, to represent Smalltalk objects as PDF, until then you don't have anything. There's no incremental step to get there. It's like evolution when you start flying. You cannot fly a bit. You can fly or you cannot fly, right? So PDF, you can read PDF or you cannot. So that's very simple. And then, of course, PDF is just a core engine. And then you have, like in Smalltalk, libraries, all kinds of libraries for encryption, for interactive document linking, and annotations, and 3D.
And animations, yes.
Whatever. And I have not implemented all of that. So I just implemented the stuff I needed, right? So there's
SVG.
Our SVG support is far from complete and from supporting the whole standard. SVG is a committee standard. It's huge. It would take a whole life to implement all of it, or maybe I'm exaggerating, but I guess we support perhaps half of the features. But that means 95% of the SVG files you may find.
Yeah, that's impressive. I'm also working on SVG for work.
Can I just add my second point? So that was the first point. I'm in the process of adding things. It's not complete. It will never be complete, stuff like that. The second one is, since I developed it for a long time and I use it actively in my commercial project, which is implemented with dozens of customers over the time, and it's actually ported to Gemstone and used professionally by other things. I consider this as a product. It's a product. It's finished. It's not a matter of getting there. It is there. It is actually in production for everything. It has tests, and if all the tests pass, then the full thing will work. It's not. I'm not on the way to make it work. It works. So it's just a matter of porting it. So you don't have to develop incrementally. It's there, and you just take it or not. But it's doesn't make much sense to have like a product which exists for 15 years start again with baby steps to get where we are already. So that's the second comment. So.
Okay, well, you've established a gradient, you've established a hill that you have to have enough time and energy to get over, and it should be. What is the what's the Git directory this is in?
Oh, I will send you a link. Yeah. Come on. Oh, I see where we are. Oh, something is wrong here. Wait. Okay, here we go.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that's not instantly fast at things.
Yeah, this is horrible, isn't it? Okay, here we go. Projects, mod transform project. Here we go.
I could probably just search GitHub PDF and Smalltalk and find it.
Here we go. There you are. So actually,
okay.
Maybe if you're interested in a little bit more background information, the porting is not the usual approach, not the approach like somehow stuff it into your system and then fix it till it runs. It's more a transformation approach. So I take my code in VisualWorks and define transformations, what needs to be changed, what methods have to be rewritten, which classes have to be renamed in the target Smalltalk. So that means each software package, in this case PDF, and each dialect will have a unique set of transformations. So I don't change anything in the source, and I will not touch anything in the target source. So I will just handle everything by transformations. That has two important features. The first one is reproducibility. So it's very easy to run it on an automatic base. And the second one is that small changes in versions or evolution of the systems involved will lead to only small changes in the transformations. That means the effort you normally have, like when you port a big system and there's a new version coming out, you have to port the whole system again. And it's not trivial to really reproduce the steps you take for the first port to reach a decent level for the second port. And with transformations, it's more an engineering task. It's reproducible, it's easy to implement, to write, and therefore it's I think it's a good approach. And it scales, right? I mean, I can do all the translations for all the target dialects at once. Yes. I mean, most of the translations will be the same anyway for most of the dialects. So, okay, so that
sounds like a very interesting approach to porting code between similar but not fully compatible systems.
Yeah.
What we have usually been doing is that in order to use some code that was originally written for other Smalltalk, we need to adopt it. And that means that maybe the initial port is not too much work, but then we need to assume responsibility for keeping it working in the future. It's no longer the responsibility of the author of the code for the other dialect, but ours. And what we're doing sounds like a much more efficient approach.
I think so. Yeah, we'll see.
Great.
I mean, I tried it out for Gemstone, for the Gemstone port, and now there's a big interesting case if it really works for all the other dialects. But I am pretty certain that it will. I think all the capabilities is there to map everything we need. But we'll see. I mean, the big addition I have now to do is the class renaming. This is a little bit tricky.
Cool.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I will take a good look at this.
That would be nice. Yeah. Maybe you can see, because I don't know Squeeze, right? And it takes a long time for me to find out how things are solved in Squeeze. although it's small and simple, of course. Everybody says that about their product. And yeah, but if somebody knows it like you, then I would just could ask, and then you say, oh yeah, it's just look here, and then you'll have it. So something like
Yeah,
that.
it's just impossible in this context. No worries.
Okay, so yeah, let's keep in contact in some way to see if we find a way for this to happen.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in this. Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. So there's some people interested in graphics here. This is very nice.
Yes. Indeed.
And
Indeed, there is.
Yeah, you might have a inheritance of transformations so that you don't have to keep parallel code. So, for example, Kui's Squeak in Pharaoh probably will have, if not all the transformations the same, let's say 90% the same, then you could have a generic thing, and then 3 tiny little files just describing how it differs from the generic.
Right. That's the plan. So, but I like to develop these kind of things bottom up. So I have my gemstone, and now we get vast and Pharaoh, and there's already now a good diversity. So I can see what can be refactored, what can be common.
Oh,
yeah,
and
but
like I said,
there's lots of possibility for that. Yes.
yeah, and it probably would be overkill because, like I said, it might be that these 3 dialects have the exact same transformation.
I can assure you they don't. I know that for sure.
I think you will find that's not the case because Quis has a different layout engine, a different layout strategy, and it has nested vector graphics, which you're not finding in some of the others. And it does not yet have Unicode baked in. That's stuff you can sort of do on the side if you squint at it a little bit. We could work on that a little bit if it's important, but it hasn't, really been important enough to. I only have so many life hours left, But, I have to play. If I can't play with it, it's tough.
But if I understood correctly, the bulk of the PDF talk packages is not the graphical part, right? It's the interpreting the bytes in the PDF file, right?
Well, the basis, this what I call engine. That means you have to make sense of the cross-reference section of the file. You have to make sense of all the objects there, how they are notated. You have to make sense of how numbers are printed and read, how dates are treated, how all these dictionary, which is their representation of objects, just exactly the same thing, how they materialize into a file and how they're materialize out of a file, stuff like that. So it's a boring, low-level bit shifting. So, but then the other stuff is based on that, and this is all Smalltalk and simple and easy and just objects. So that's not a big deal. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
yeah, that would be good to have more or less like a portable PDF stuff, and then and you could build so nice tools. PDF is so powerful. And how cool would it be with such a tight system like Squeeze to make just like, I don't know, merge pages tools or something for PDF, or change rotation tool or whatever. Just a little gimmick would be all so easy.
Yeah. We should explore all that. Well, folks, it's extremely late here. It's almost 1 a.m. in the morning, and I need to get some sleep. So, thank you, Christian. Thank you, folks. This has been a lovely meeting.
Thanks for coming, Juan.
Ken already left, but he's. I will say, even if he's not here, his work is great, and his presentation was lovely. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So thanks to him especially. Well, See you soon, folks. Thank you all. Take
Yeah,
care.
have a good night. How's it going, Mike?
Hanging in there. I think the light's at the end of the tunnel.
Cool. Oh, hold on. I think I'm going to end the YouTube live stream.
Good.